Let me tell you something today that the enemy doesn't want you to hear. You were not built to blend in. You were born to stand out. There is a glory on your life, a weight of divine presence that cannot be camouflaged. You don't need to announce it. You don't have to advertise it. It walks in before you do. It speaks even when you are silent. And that glory, that divine fingerprint of purpose makes people uncomfortable. Not because of what you said, but because of what you carry. If you're wondering why they ghosted you, why they slandered you, why doors slammed that you didn't even knock on, it's because the glory on you exposes the emptiness in them. Not everyone hates you. Some just hate what you reveal in them. Why do some people tense up when you walk into the room? Why do their smiles fade, conversations shift, or their tone change? It's not arrogance on your part, it's atmosphere responding to authority. You didn't ask for attention, but the glory on your life demands it. They're not reacting to your clothes, your title, or your volume. They're reacting to your presence. There's a glory on you that carries weight, heavenly weight, that exposes what's light, shallow, or broken in others. You don't even need to open your mouth. The oil does the talking. The glory speaks before you do, and that's why some people squirm when you show up. You walk in with quiet power, and rooms begin to shift. It's not charisma. It's not charm. It's not even strategy. It's that there's something on you that can't be duplicated, manufactured, or ignored. And the thing is, most of the time, you're not even aware of it. You're just trying to stay obedient, trying to survive, trying to stay faithful. But while you're doing that, your glory is making bold declarations in the spirit realm. It tells demons to back off. It tells atmospheres to come into order. It tells darkness light just walked in. And some people are uncomfortable, not because you've done anything to offend them, but because your existence challenges their complacency. You become a mirror without saying a word. Your discipline highlights their laziness. Your faith reveals their unbelief. Your hope interrupts their despair, and your humility confronts their pride. You're not even trying to be noticed. But because you carry divine residue from your time with God, you will be noticed. The enemy recognizes glory. Hell pays attention to it. That's why warfare comes from places you never expected. That's why friends become distant. That's why opportunities suddenly get blocked without warning. Because the glory is louder than gossip, stronger than fear, and brighter than bitterness. And while others are obsessed with platforms, you're over here just trying to keep your heart pure. And still your glow makes people nervous. That's because glory doesn't need a spotlight. It shines in secret. You carry something that heaven stamped and earth can't explain. It's not about you being better. It's about you being cold. It's about you being chosen to reflect something sacred, something eternal, something unshakable. You wonder why you don't fit in. Why certain rooms feel tight, or certain people avoid real conversations with you. It's because when glory enters, everything fake gets exposed. The glory doesn't just make people see you, it forces them to look at themselves. It's not your fault they feel off balance. You're just walking in alignment. It's not ego, it's evidence of assignment. Sometimes the loudest thing about you is the thing you didn't try to show. You're not loud, but your calling is. You're not prideful, but your presence challenges pride. You're not perfect, but the purity you carry reveals compromise in others. And it's not that you think you're better, it's that your very being reminds people there's more to life than the surface. Your presence whispers of purpose. It speaks of destiny. It calls things higher just by existing. So don't be shocked when people act strange. Don't shrink when they whisper. Don't question yourself when they pull away. Because when glory walks in, it doesn't need to shout. It just stands still and everything around it has to respond. Have you ever sat alone, confused and wondering, what did I do wrong? You replayed the conversations, double-checked your tone, apologized when you didn't have to, and still they pulled away, talked about you, or cut you off like you never existed. But hear this truth. Rejection isn't always about your mistakes. Sometimes it's a reaction to your mantle. You didn't offend them. Your light did. You didn't betray them. Your growth did. You didn't push them away. Your presence reminded them of the places they've refused to grow. And instead of rising with you, they chose to retreat from you. Rejection is often not about who you are, but about what you represent, a standard, a calling, a reflection they weren't ready to see. There are people who were fine with you as long as you stayed small, as long as you didn't speak up, as long as your anointing stayed dormant. But the moment you started embracing who God called you to be, they switched up. Suddenly your confidence was cocky. Your boldness was too much. Your discernment was judgmental. But truthfully, they weren't offended by your personality. They were convicted by your purpose. They'll say you changed, but the real truth is you evolved, and they refused to. You healed, and they stayed bitter. You pressed in, and they settled. You prayed through, and they partied through. And when light shows up in the middle of darkness, the first reaction is resistance. Rejection isn't about you being unworthy. It's about you being a mirror. And not everyone can handle their own reflection. Stop mourning over people who walked away when your glory began to glow. Stop begging to stay in places that got uncomfortable once your purpose became obvious. That silence wasn't an accident. That blocked number wasn't a coincidence. That distance wasn't random. You became too real for those who were content with pretending. Your clarity exposed their confusion. Your breakthrough made their excuses invalid. The enemy will try to twist rejection into shame, hoping you'll backtrack, second-guess yourself, and settle. But don't forget, Jesus was rejected too, not because of sin, but because of power. People fear what they can't control. They crucify what they can't define. And they distance themselves from what makes them confront themselves. You were loyal. You were honest. You were available. But when your light started revealing cracks in the foundation, they didn't ask how to repair. They walked out. That's not your guilt to carry. That's not your weight to drag around. Stop internalizing someone else's insecurity as your inadequacy. You carry something that forces people to either grow or go. And some would rather leave than level up. They'd rather gossip than get honest. They'd rather paint you as the villain than admit they stayed stagnant while you kept climbing. So when rejection shows up, don't question your value. Recognize your impact. Sometimes rejection is God's redirection. Sometimes it's divine protection. But often it's simply proof that what's on you is unsettling what's around you. You don't have to beg for a seat at tables God never called you to. You don't have to lower your volume to soothe someone else's silence. You don't have to dim your fire to keep others warm who refuse to carry their own flame. Let them leave. Let them misunderstand. Let them mislabel. Because in the end, your calling is not up for debate. Their rejection isn't your reflection. It's a reaction to the truth you walk in without saying a word. Why is it that when you finally start walking in confidence, people call you too much? Why is it that when you speak with conviction, they say you're arrogant? Why is it that your fire, your passion, your light seems to threaten more than it inspires? It's because this world has gotten too comfortable with dimmed down power and watered down greatness. And you, my friend, refuse to blend in. There's something in you that was never meant to stay quiet. You were not created to sit in the back, blend with the crowd, or minimize your gifts so others don't feel small. But life has a way of trying to teach us to shrink. When you were younger, they told you to calm down. When you dreamed big, they said, be realistic. When you tried to lead, they whispered, who do you think you are? But here's the truth. They didn't hate your fire. They hated what your fire exposed in their coldness. You were born to stand out. Standing out has a cost. It makes you a target. It draws jealousy. It makes small-minded people uncomfortable. But shrinking will never be the solution. Dimming your light doesn't protect you, it betrays you. You don't glorify God by pretending to be average. You glorify God by owning the fullness of who He created you to be. There are people around you who would rather you stay insecure because your insecurity makes them feel secure. There are environments where being silent is celebrated because silence doesn't stir up conviction. But what's inside you wasn't meant to lie dormant. That boldness you carry, it's divine. That voice in you, it's a weapon. That light on you, it's necessary. And every time you shrink, you send a message to your future that you're not ready. Every time you second guess what God has already affirmed, you delay the breakthrough that someone else needs you to release. Somebody is waiting for your boldness to unlock theirs. Somebody's miracle is tied to your obedience to shine fully. You aren't called to fit in, you are called to shift atmospheres. You weren't anointed to blend, you were anointed to break patterns. And that means you will upset some people. You will stretch some minds. You will walk into rooms and carry a presence that's louder than words. And yes, people will misunderstand it. But your job is not to manage their comfort. Your job is to steward your calling. They said, you changed? Good. You were supposed to. They said, you're doing too much? Good. You weren't created to play small. They said, you're hard to handle? Good. You weren't built to be handled. You were built to lead, disrupt, shift, and shine. This isn't the season to tone it down. This is the season to rise up. This is the season to speak what needs to be said. Walk where others fear to go. And stand tall when culture says to bow. You will not shrink to fit into places God called you to take over. You will not quiet your roar to soothe ears that can't handle the sound of truth. The world needs your voice. Your family needs your courage. Your generation needs your obedience. The enemy wants you small because he knows your full power is dangerous. And if you ever stop apologizing for it, if you ever stop dimming it to please the insecure, then hell better run. So no, you're not too much. You're exactly what this moment needs. And your light was made to shine, even if it exposes what others tried to keep hidden in the dark. You keep asking, why do I feel so alone? You're surrounded by people, yet still isolated. You pour into others, yet feel empty yourself. You keep showing up, leading, serving, speaking, and yet deep inside there's a quiet ache. God, why does this calling come with so much separation? The answer, because what's on your life requires protection, not popularity. There's a weight on your destiny that can't afford to be distracted. You can't be everywhere. You can't say yes to everything. You can't run with everybody because some things are too precious to risk in shallow spaces. The anointing on you is expensive, and anything costly must be kept guarded. When God is preparing to do something significant through you, He often isolates you to insulate you. See, isolation is not punishment. It's preparation. You're not being left behind. You're being set apart. While others are networking, you're being nurtured. While others are climbing ladders, God is digging wells inside you. And while they're seeing, you're being strengthened. Don't mistake the silence for abandonment. Heaven has you hidden on purpose. Because sometimes the greatest work happens underground. Before a seed breaks through the surface, it has to grow in darkness. Before David held the crown, he was alone with sheep. Before Jesus launched his ministry, he was led into the wilderness. Before Moses delivered a nation, he wandered through the desert, not forgotten but formed. When you carry oil, you will feel the weight of solitude, because oil is crushed in private. Glory is refined in secret, and calling is clarified in quiet places where no one is cheering, where no one sees your process. Just you, your God, and your tears. You're being developed where applause can't reach. You're being shaped where the spotlight can't distract. And that's exactly how heaven works. You're not lonely because you're empty. You're lonely because you're full. Full of vision, full of assignment, full of glory. And some people simply can't sit with that. They can't comprehend what you carry. So God separates you before they sabotage it. He silences the noise so you can hear his voice. He shuts certain doors not to hurt you, but to keep you from entering rooms too early, unready, exposed. Yes, isolation stings, but it sharpens. It breaks pride. It builds character. It teaches you how to worship with no music, how to pray without the mic, how to trust without confirmation. It takes away your crutches so you can finally walk by faith. In isolation, you learn obedience. You learn focus. You learn discernment. And most of all, you learn that you are never truly alone. People may have walked away, but heaven never did. The crowds may be gone, but the cloud of glory still rests on you. The phone may not ring, but divine instructions still reach you. And while others are addicted to attention, you're being trained to carry authority. You don't need validation when God has already stamped you. You don't need constant company when angels have been assigned to walk with you. God is hiding you to protect the oil. He's covering you to preserve the flame. He's keeping you from unnecessary connections that would dilute what he's placed in you. Because what you're called to do can't be born in comfort. It must be birthed in consecration. The stage can wait. The platform can pause. Right now, he's teaching your spirit how to survive in stillness. And that kind of preparation, it's whole. So if you feel isolated, misunderstood, even forgotten, understand this. The deeper the oil, the tighter the process. The greater the glory, the lonelier the path. And the higher the calling, the more intense the separation. Have you ever wondered why the weight you carry feels so heavy at times? Why it seems like life hits you harder than others? Like your battles are more intense, your attacks more frequent, your path more rugged. It's not random. It's not coincidence. It's confirmation that what you're carrying is not ordinary. It's sacred. You're not under pressure because you're weak. You're under pressure because you're anointed. You've been chosen, handpicked, called by heaven to carry something bigger than yourself. And anything that carries glory must first survive the crushing. Before the oil flows, the olive is pressed. Before the fragrance is released, the spice is ground. Before the vessel shines, the gold is refined by fire. So no, it's not just stress, it's spiritual significance. You carry weight. Not the weight of fear or shame, but the divine weight of purpose. There's something on your life that demands warfare. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because you're finally doing something right. You've been trusted with truth. You've been handed vision. You've been marked by God, and the enemy doesn't fight what isn't a threat. You may feel overwhelmed, but that's because you're full of potential, full of destiny, full of spiritual substance. That pressure you feel, it's the stretching of your capacity. It's the growth of your mantle. It's the evidence that what's inside you is too big for where you used to be. Heaven has placed something weighty on your shoulders, and that weight is not meant to crush you, but to crown you. You are not built to be casual. You're built to be consecrated. And with consecration comes pressure. You don't get to blend in. You don't get to walk light. The glory on your life comes with responsibility, with power, with weight. And that's why shortcuts won't work for you. That's why average won't satisfy you. That's why compromise makes your spirit ache, because you were created to carry more. You don't just walk into rooms, you shift atmospheres. You don't just pray, you break chains. You don't just survive storms, you command peace. Because there's a supernatural mantle on you that can't be explained in natural terms. And yes, it comes with burdens. Yes, it comes with long nights, silent tears, misunderstood seasons, and lonely roads. But it's all part of the weight, the holy weight, the holy weight. The kind that crushes ego and builds character. The kind that silences flesh and awakens spirit. The kind that makes you pray when you don't feel like it, fast when no one's watching, and stay faithful when doors close. That's the kind of weight you're carrying. And when the weight gets heavy, don't misinterpret it as a sign to give up. Recognize it for what it is. Proof you're chosen. Proof that heaven trusts you with glory. That God believes in your shoulders. That your back was built for this. Because those who are crowned with glory must first be trained by weight. Your warfare is intense not because you're weak, but because your future is mighty. Your opposition is loud because your breakthrough is near. The attacks have increased because your impact is undeniable. The greater the weight, the deeper the oil. And the deeper the oil, the stronger the anointing. You're not just walking through fire, you're emerging with refinement. You're not just enduring pressure, you're being trusted with purpose. You're not just carrying burdens, you're birthing something eternal. And when you finally step into the fullness of what you've been prepared for, everything will make sense. Every crushing, every stretch, every tear, every no, every lonely moment, all of it is this price of the weight of glory. You weren't created to be accepted by the crowd. You were born to call it higher. You weren't placed on this earth to win a popularity contest. You were sent here to shift nations. And that's why no matter how hard you try, you will never fit in. Because what's on you was never meant to blend, it was meant to lead. Let this settle in your spirit. You're not here to be liked. You're here to lead. Leadership. Real leadership isn't about applause. It's not about likes, followers, or validation. It's about obedience. It's about hearing God's voice and moving forward, even when no one claps, even when people whisper, even when friends walk away. Leadership will cost you comfort. It will cost you popularity. It will even cost you relationships. But it will never cost you your purpose. You've been called to be set apart, and that calling comes with tension. The tension of being misunderstood. The tension of standing alone. The tension of carrying a word that makes others uncomfortable. But you can't abandon your mantle just because people don't understand your movement. You can't trade your divine authority for their human approval. If they don't like you, let them leave. Because leadership isn't about being liked. It's about being faithful. Think about the ones who've shifted history. They weren't always liked. They were often feared, hated, criticized, and even rejected. But they walked anyway. They spoke anyway. They stood anyway. Because leaders don't wait for consensus. They respond to conviction. Your presence alone causes tension. Not because you're arrogant, but because you carry authority. And people who are still bound to cycles can't always receive those who are walking in freedom. That's why they mock what they don't understand. That's why they downplay your fire. That's why they say you're doing too much, or who do you think you are, because your confidence convicts their complacency. But your assignment is not to soothe their insecurity. Your assignment is to ignite awakening. You're not called to tone it down. You're called to call it up. You weren't meant to echo what's trending. You were meant to declare what's true. And yes, it will get lonely. Yes, it will get heavy. But the cost of being chosen is always higher than the price of fitting in. This generation is drowning in comfort, craving validation and chasing applause. But God is raising up voices who will lead with fire, truth, and boldness. And if you've ever felt like the black sheep, like the outcast, like the one who just can't seem to fit in, that's your confirmation you're a leader. You don't carry imitation, you carry impartation. You don't just reflect culture, you reshape it. You don't wait for the room to move. You move the room, because what's in you can't sit silent while the world stays broken. What's in you refuses to stay quiet while people stay bound. That's why you speak when others stay silent. That's why you see what others overlook. That's why your passion burns even when it gets you labeled, misunderstood, or dismissed. Leadership isn't pretty, it's prophetic. It doesn't always get claps. It gets warfare. It don't always get platforms, it gets process. But it's worth it, because when you lead with obedience, you unlock destinies. You shift regions. You break generational cycles.